it is time for us to talk about the book that everybody has been waiting 3 years to return. And we decided that we wanted to bring somebody on to talk about that with none other than Rich Keefe of
Oh,
Hashtag. How you doing, Rich?
hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Not too bad. Waiting for Adam Cole to pop up.
Any minute now.
Any minute.
Man, you got that ready to go so fast.
It's a quick fire. It's in the quick fires. Yep.
Julie,
So how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I am excited for this, and I knew that this book was finally coming back out, and I was looking forward to hearing your episode about it. And then you're like, "Hey, why don't you jump aboard?" I'm like, you know what? Good. Gives me an excuse to go back and reread a bunch of it. So I am rip roaring ready to go.
Awesome. Now, I know you shared some of the stuff on Twitter recently that you have been reading, but we wanted to just check in before we dig into Saga on some of the stuff that you've been reading, whether you liked it, didn't like it, and so on.
So some of these are certainly books that you guys recommended on your show. I will start with Crossover. Very, very enjoyable. Loved Crossover. Picked it up before reading any of it, just on your recommendation. Ripped through it and just, I think one sit down. Awesome. Looking forward to reading more of this. This was worth it, and I highly recommend it to everybody out there who likes comics. I grabbed this. This is The Walking Dead: The Alien, which is kind of works out nicely. Brian K. Vaughan did a little work in the Walking Dead universe. It's a one-off. It takes place in Barcelona, so not with in Atlanta or DC or anything like that. It's good, but it's literally like one issue. Like, look how thin that is. Like, it is.
Yeah,
it's one issue. I'm okay that I bought it because I own all the Walking Dead issues or collected editions, so it goes good with the collection. But $20 is kind of stiff for
$20 for that.
$20. Now I got it with one of those buy one get one half off type deals, so I paid a little less than 20, but that's what it goes for, and that's clearly because of the two names, Brian K. Vaughan and The Walking Dead. Yeah, it was cool, 100%. But honestly, if you see it in a bookstore, just like sneaky read it quick before, and then you could read it in the store.
Yeah, I don't think that's
been red flagged.
Right. Yeah, I didn't take it in the bathroom, Joe. I read it in the aisle. You could have easily like pretended you were just like looking at the pictures, because there's also not a ton of dialogue, so it's like a quick read too for just one. Okay. And then the other two that I read was the James Tynion Joker, which was really good. Joe had tipped me off that it was mostly a James Gordon story, which is true, but I still loved it. I thought the Batman kind of lore referencing some of the older stuff I thought was really good. And then probably the worst out of the four, but I'm glad I read it, was Rorschach. I read that whole collected edition, so whatever that was, like 12 issues that was put out. Tom King. I don't know. I'm a sucker for Watchmen. Doomsday Clock let me down. This was better than that, but I can't say it was great.
Doomsday, I fell off on this one pretty quickly. I remember you asking us about it. I think I read the first two issues, and I was just like, I just can't. But Doomsday Clock, you bring that one up. That was one that was
That was I'm unlike you guys. I normally don't pick up the single issues, right? But Doomsday Clock was one that I did up until like 6 or 7. Like, I was trying to stay in it. I was going to the local shop, just picking these up, and then I'm like, what's the point? I'm like, I'm not really enjoying it. I'm done. So I've never even gone back and finished it, but I read more than half of it.
Okay.
So when the trade is out for Dark Knights of Steel, written by Tom Taylor, I think you'll enjoy that one. And then the first issue just came. We just talked about a few minutes ago, but Batman the Knight by Chip Zdarsky.
Okay.
Which is like it seems like at least the first issue, it's early on, but that was about like him at Gotham Academy. So it's it seems a little bit dark there. But Nita Hawes' Nightmare blog, I thought, Joe, you'd bring that one up. I know you talked about it on Dork Rich and your Dorkies.
Yeah,
but oh man, we've only seen the first 3 issues. But God,
I got a question for you too, and I know you guys mentioned this before in some of your look aheads, but Batman v Bigby.
Yeah, so I read the first issue and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty good." It surprised me because I thought it was going to be shit, and then it hasn't stayed on my list.
Have you guys read Fables?
No, I never
not read Fables.
No.
So Fables is incredible, and so that's where Bigby is from. Obviously, Big Bad Wolf, and it's a whole thing of like Snow White and Cinderella and like all this stuff, and it's an incredible run. It's really long. There is a ton of it. I haven't read all of it, but it is It might even, I don't know if it's ongoing or not, but it's insanely long. And so that's what this crossover is. And I believe it's the guy who wrote all of Fables is writing this. So I'm pretty interested in it, but I'll probably just wait until it's out in the collected edition.
It might be on Hoopla afterwards too. I don't know if you've heard of that app before, but I've been trying to tell everybody about it. So
I'm glad you mentioned that because that has really helped me a lot. Save a ton of money.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear.
Tip to Fryer for that one.
Fryer nailed it.
Well, no, I don't need any more praise, guys. I appreciate it though. Let's move on to talk about Saga. That's what we want to praise today, because we've gotten 54 issues of this friggin' book, and then it went on a 3-year pause, almost a 4-year pause, Joe, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, last issue was released July 25th, 2018.
So with that being the case, you guys can go listen to the episode where I talked about Saga in our mainline episodes. I forget what number that was. That is spoiler free, within reason. This is going to have a lot of spoilers in it. I'll give you a harder warning when we get closer, but there's not going to be much spoiler free stuff. Because this is for the people who've been waiting for this book, for issue 55 to come out for a long time. It's coming out next week, January 26th, not to timestamp this. But Joe, why don't you take us through the synopsis for this book?
At long last, Hazel and her star-crossed family are finally back. But where the hell have they been? As thanks for fans' endless patience, the Saga team is proud to return to a double-length issue, 44 pages. You're going to love this, Keefe, for the regular price of $2.99.
I'm in. I'm getting this thing.
Awesome.
Without variant covers or gimmicky renumbering, just more pulse-pounding adventure, heart-wrenching character drama, and glorious graphic sex and violence. I mean, what else could you want?
Yeah, I mean, that's what Saga is, right? It's you have the quote for it, Joe. You've put it perfectly. I don't want to steal it from you. I would never do something like that. But Romeo and Juliet on acid is the perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
So there's 9 volumes in total. I actually have those all set aside right now for those at home watching us. But oh wow, some of it's getting caught up on the green screen.
Stack.
Yeah, that is nice. I think they've been putting out a compendium or an omnibus.
I almost bought it. It's like $65. It's a thick bitch.
They got that. They also have 3 books.
Yes.
So but there's 9 like collected editions or whatever. Then there's 3, so then you can get like each one has 3 of the books in there because apparently this is only the halfway point.
Right. So, that's what we've been told. Yes.
The goal is, and I don't know how old I'm going to be when this is done or whatever, but so that probably puts it in line with like Preacher and The Boys, I think, as far as number of issues, number of books, number of collected stuff like that. I think it's probably going to be about that run. Not as long as Walking Dead, but as long as those other 2.
Yeah, The Walking Dead. Well, it could come close to what? Because Walking Dead was that 170? Is that 170 range, 190 range? Is that right? Because
I want to say off the top of my head, I want to say 196.
Yeah, so you're right.
Did not hit 200.
Yeah, so that's almost double. So that's not even close to that. But Joe, you did some research. This is on Hoopla.
Oh yeah, I read most of this on Hoopla.
Oh, so there you go. But this is absolutely, Keefe, I know that you do the same thing. Well, we all do this. Like you go and is this Hoopla worthy or is this buy it worthy or is it you're going to get it on Hoopla? This is absolutely something like if you are a comic book fan, you want to own this shit 100%.
Oh, 100%. And this is one that I don't own yet, shockingly. It's like my favorite book that I don't have anything of. So I'm not sure if I want to get it in the books or the compendium. I don't know what I want to do, but once this is done, I got to make room on the shelf for this because I actually read it pre-Hoopla. I read it back in the day. Actual library was where I went and got it out.
Get the fuck out, really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. So so the big question for you then is, are you gonna be picking up the single issues for this?
I am 100% going to pick up the issue next week. 100%, the double issue. That's a no-brainer. And then I assume I will. If I know it's going to be good. So at this point, I probably will pick up the single issues just for this. But then also buy the collected edition later on. That's probably that's just how good it is. So that's
There's not many titles that I would say it's worth doing that, but Saga is if there is one, Saga is probably the only one. If you have to pick one, and of course, a little overview for this, Joe. He's from Wreath, she's from Landfall. 2 star-crossed lovers have a child, and everyone wants them dead, yet they live. Sort of, but I think Joe puts it better with your 1-sentence synopsis of it. But Joe, we got a series of questions that we're going to kind of go through this. First one is going to be kind of spoiler free, but what's the first one, Joe?
So what first got you, into Saga? And for me, it was listening to Nick talk. I mean, again, I've known of Saga, but it just seemed like such a daunting task to jump into it, right? Because this was, again, there's 50 something issues out, but Nick really sold me on it, when he talked about it on the show,
It
and
was
I'm
tough.
so glad he did.
Tough sell.
But
Yeah.
Richard, how
Yes.
about yourself?
So I'll try to make it a short answer as well. But basically, I think it was like 2000. I didn't pick it up right away, but it was early enough. I want to say like 2014. I had gotten myself fully back into comics. Like you, Joe, was a big fan as a kid and then took a long break from it. And then I got all the way back in. And it was The Walking Dead, actually, that there was the show. And I'm like, oh, there's a book. I started reading the book. And then I'm like, all right, what else is out there? Because I caught up to that run. And I read all the Essential Batman books. I read Watchmen. I read Preacher. I read all that stuff. And then I loved Why the Last Man and Ex Machina. I read both of those full runs, and I'm like, all right. So then you get to the point where you're like, all right, what authors do I like? And I clearly like Brian K. Vaughan. And I want to say 3 of the issues were out. Not issues, but 3 of the collected editions were out at that point. So it was like relatively early on. And loved it. Just like I was blown away by it. And then would just wait. I was like patient. And I'm like, all right, I'll see when are we getting that next trade? When are we getting the next trade? And then eventually caught up and was just like, again, it's one of those things where, especially for you, Joe, it had to be like binge watching a TV show, catching up, and then realizing that the next season's not for another like year. I'm ready for the rest of this right now. So no, this has always been one of the best ones. It's always been one that I've recommended to people. I really think it's the perfect comic book.
It really is. And for me, I actually got into it a little bit after. Keith, you were the first one of us to read it. I got into it about a year after it went on pause, where I was really diving hardcore back deep into comics. I'd been reading stuff, but then it was like, all right, like Red Hood kind of changed the game for me. You talking about him a ton. I was like, I got to give him a shot. Keith likes him so much. I got to give this a look. And then that changed the game for me immensely, just because like, oh, this is a character who I didn't care about before, and I would assume most people wouldn't. So then I see Saga every friggin' comic shop I go into, whether it's Newberry Comics or it was Toy Vault that I used to go to, or Time Capsule. Now, like everywhere they had the first trade of Saga on display, and I'm like, all right. Like I had a friend that worked at one of the shops. I was like, I want to give this a look. It's like, yeah, don't even think twice about it. Just pick it up. Just don't. You like absolutely. And after it's like, oh wow. Like then you inhale this shit because it is
I think
so good.
If you just start like going, binging best comic books, top 10 comic books, top 10 graphic novels, top 10, that's like the consensus. There's a lot there, there's a few that are in and out in different people's opinions, but this one pops up on everybody's list. So it's another easy one to be like, all right, if everybody says this is good, let me at least start it. And there's no way you can read the first issue and not want to continue reading this. There's no chance.
Yeah, 100%. So now that we've gotten that all the way, now this is the hard spoiler warning. So if you haven't read Saga, what the fuck's the matter with you? Go read it. Go listen to our episode on it where I talked about it in like more spoiler-free detail. But now this is for the hardcore listeners, the hardcore readers, who are all up to date like us. Joe, what's our next one we got planned?
What is it about Saga that you like the most? And I think we're all going to have some wildly different answers here, but we'll let our guests go first.
All right. So first of all, like, me, guys, I love Batman. I love Red Hood. I love all those characters, but there is something about the creator own, because you go into it with no expectations of what the characters should be, no expectations of what the world should be. So I think the really good creator owned stories like Preacher and The Boys and Saga have a chance to be even better than the best book of any of the Marvel and DC characters that we're so used to. And so I just love the world that is created here. It's very Star Wars like, but with more violence and more sex. Joe mentioned the Shakespeare stuff. Hell, if we're still talking about Shakespeare stories, obviously he did something right. Obviously that guy knows how to write. Combine the two and all the different creatures that are in this and the twists and turns, the violence, not afraid to kill off characters. Like they don't get too attached to characters. No lulls either, which is crazy, because even the best books, even my favorite books, have times where you're like, all right, you probably could have taken that out. You didn't need that issue or that story arc or whatever. This whole thing from start to finish, or start to, I guess, the midway point, has been incredible. But to answer your question, I would say just all the characters in the world. Like it's awesome to dive into that every time you read it.
Yeah, this world is immense, and it is absolutely mind blowing to think there is no filler. There is no down issues, no down storylines. I mean, we've talked about like how, you know, Zdarsky and Taylor and Lemire, like these are like great character guys. Like they understand how to write like characters. But Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, what they've gone so much more than that. They've captured emotions, like in relationships and everything. It's been so perfect. And I think what I love about it the most is that, you know, they're able to take like these very serious, complex social issues and discuss them in a way that doesn't beat you over the fucking head with it. Like a lot of times it's in your face, it's right on the fucking nose, and it's like, oh, okay, I get it. But they're able to talk about any fucking topic. They are unapologetic, accepting. They're not ashamed of anything. It's extremely taboo, a lot of the shit they get into.
Oh yeah.
And yet you're enthralled and you just don't give a fuck unless your wife or daughter are walking behind you and Prince fucking Robot the Fourth is jacking off. Then maybe you close the book there for a second. But like, it is something about like they're able to take these huge social, you know, topics and just write it in such a way that you're captivated, you're turning the page, and whatever your beliefs are, you're just fascinated by what's going on, and it's wildly fucked up, and it's so fucking good.
Yeah, it's about everything. I mean, that's the best way to put it. I mean, like you said, Joe, unapologetic and all that. And you can't put this thing down once you get started. I mean, as much as I'm excited to get this next issue, a part of me is like, you know, it might be better off for like your mental health to just wait till the trade comes out, because you're just going to want to inhale the whole thing. But the other, we've talked about pacing a lot more recently, Joe, and I think part of that for me has been because I've been going back through Saga, and it's like Brian K. Vaughan, he does it really well in Why the Last Man, where he just like he moves things around so quickly and bounces around well, but he does it absolutely perfectly here, where it's like a couple pages with this group, then a couple pages with that group, and then
haven't Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, you haven't seen Will in a while. It's but even better than Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's just it's done so well, and like talk about a page turner with comics. Like you want to hide certain things like to keep for the left hand page, and you want to tease it properly on the right hand page. Nobody does that better than Brian K. Vaughan does in Saga, and Fiona Staples for that matter with her art too. It's outstanding, and I also like how it feels like every time that Hazel like kind of leans into her dialogue or her monologue, it's like there's some shit's about to happen. Like this is usually not good when Hazel starts talking to us. So it's just the Brian K. like Fiona Staples does a great job with the art, but Brian K. Vaughan's writing, I mean, this is the top. This is an example of like, if you want to like learn about comics and everything, read this shit because he does such a good job.
Yeah. It's just brilliant. Just brilliant.
Now that brings us to what next, Joe?
Favorite moment. So why don't you kick us off, Fryer?
All right. So, if I had to pin it down to one, because there's a lot and it's tough. The one for me that just jumps out is getting to know D. Oswald Heist, who, of course, everybody know who's been reading this and is up to date like us. That character has since passed, but the fact that this whole friggin' shit happened because of some stupid, frappy romance novel called A Nighttime Smoke is so ridiculous, but it totally makes sense for Saga too. I mean, of course it should, right? It's just, I absolutely love that's the case. And this is just, it's just in the character too. He just plays it so well. It's like, no. Like, this isn't what you think it is. And then it's like, no, you guys were totally right. I'm so glad somebody finally understood me. It's just complete bullshit. But at the same time, I fucking love it.
Yeah. How about you, Rich?
So before I get to my favorite moment, one of my favorite aspects also of the book, and because Fryer just mentioned, Hazel's narration is so good, and there's times where she'll say something and then you're like, all right, they're kind of letting you know something that's going to happen way later. Am I going to remember this, and how is this going to play out? And like, she's giving you like little clues as she's going through, which is, so I love how it's written that way. I would say the Brand getting the dragon semen in order to save.
Oh wow.
I think that was a good addition. I like those characters. We'll get into the characters that we like too, but the Will's, you think the Will's gonna die, and then his sister, the Brand, another fucking cool name, cool character, and they're like, yeah, there's one way to save him, and
it's great call.
Like also like summing up Saga to somebody who's never read it. But like, at some point they need to get dragon semen in order to save somebody. And like,
Yep.
Yeah.
You can only imagine what happens from there. So that would probably be my favorite moment.
That was a lot.
Yeah, and the clusterfuck that ensued in trying to procure said semen.
Correct.
Right. Yes.
That was a lot. Yeah.
Oh man, and I just read that not too long ago too, because I think I read volumes 5 through 9 last weekend. Like just boom.
Oh yeah.
Just rip through it. For me, I love the reuniting of the family because of the moment like Marco and Elena sort of embrace for the first time, they get fucking separated again. And that leads us down a whole nother, wild, fellowship type storyline. And that brings us to I love Gran in prison. Like when she was in prison and Hazel was at school, and then we get introduced to I can never pronounce her fucking
Petrichor?
Petrichor, thank you. Her name, his name, their name. Again, another fucked up scene where Hazel's in the showers and you meet Petrichor for the first time, and my wife's walking behind me and she says, "What the fuck are you reading?"
Yep.
Like it's Saga, you know. But I loved because that was a big turning point, because up until that point they'd all been together. They had escaped various different, assaults and things of that nature, and then they finally get broken up. You get these great pairings of Hazel, Alana, and Gran. Marco, Prince Robot, Gus. Fucking love Gus. And then you
Gus
get Hazel, Gran, and Petrichor.
This is so it's GH with like a little accent over
Goose.
Umlaut, whatever over the U, right?
Yeah.
Goose. Fucking love Goose.
Yeah,
Gus, whatever. But I because that was a big turning point, because then they all get back together, right? You break them up to bring them back together again. And so that was very Lord of the Rings-ish for me, which I love that kind of storytelling. So, but there's so many fucking fucked up moments in this book. We could spend an hour just on that.
Oh yeah.
So speaking of which, let's get to the most fucked up moment story arc. Keith, you lead us off.
Yeah, like you said, so many to choose from. I'll have to go with Alana's second pregnancy storyline and end wife. Like that's hard to read for so many reasons, and it's also one of those things where people are like, oh, like comic books are just fucking pictures and they're just like for kids, and you're like, no, they talk about literally the heaviest shit imaginable. And the way that they do it too in the story is just
who was the creature? What the fuck was that creature? He was
the werewolf.
Fucked up. Yes. Yeah. Oh,
God. The werewolf mother with the
they called her the end wife.
Yeah. That was a lot. That was on my list.
Just horrible. And really, I think anything going on at Sextillion would also have to be.
That's
for sure.
Yeah. Because that leads me to mine. I went with the Will. And like anytime he was fucking banging that no-armed, six-eyed spider broad, I don't know, for some reason, like
the stock.
The stock.
I'm on the stock.
I'm
wait, I like the stock. Are you say you're in on the stock? You mean like
stock.
Okay.
If I lived in this world, I'd be all over the stock.
Out on the stock. I mean, especially after that incident where I had the spider in my eye. Anything with all those.
With you.
She's on the Don't Steal a Smooch list. Duly noted.
Yep. She'd be on actually a lot of characters from this book would be on that list.
Yes. Not her though. There's too many things going on there. I get lost. First of all, fucking Schmenzer's over here, hands over there. There's fucking six claws over here. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Just trying to survive, but it's a story to tell.
Yeah, it'd be a hell of a story. Holy smokes! Yeah, and I think Fry, you had the same thing, right?
Yeah, I have the Will, and actually that the stuff with the end wife. Actually, as you pointed out, Richard, that abortion clinic, if you want to call it that was a lot. That was some heavy ass shit. But the Will, everything that happens to the Will is just like this fucking guy just can't catch a break until, of course, he gets what he's wanted the whole time. But I'm very curious to see how things move forward with that character.
His ex-girlfriend can get it too.
Yeah.
What's her name there?
Gwendolyn?
Yes.
Yeah. She's a lot. She's a very interesting character too. Yep. But and I'm sure she's on that list for you as well, Rich. I would hope if the stock's on your list.
100%. If the stock's on your list, I want to know what's not on your list. Right?
The end wife.
Yeah, the end wife.
Not on there. Not on there.
Oh man, but yeah, I would say you guys hit on pretty much everything that I think is most fucked up about Saga, and that's part of what makes it so amazing. I mean, it's so good. But anyways,
so let's talk about favorite main character here, and I'll lead us off on this one because I thought about this one a lot. Like I've got the Will here, right? Love the Will. Yeah, because
You're
he's
an
really
asshole,
fucked
Joe.
up.
You're an
But
asshole.
I'll tell you what, I went with Prince Robot the Fourth.
Oh,
Because he is a real smug prick. And he's not the type of character that I like when I'm reading comic books. I'm usually like, that fucking asshole. But he's such a wild character, man. And the concept of him really blows my mind because when you look at him, he's got a fucking TV for a head. But again, he's got full man parts. And so it's like he's human with a fucking TV head. Like I can't wrap my mind around it. But what I love is like when he's pissed off, like you see like the imagery on his face. And then there's that scene where I keep going back to it. Maybe I got issues here, but he's jacking off. But then the picture of Alana goes across his screen, and you're like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
Yeah,
Like, I always thought that was funny. Like you could see because he doesn't have a face, but you clearly know how he's feeling by the imagery. But it's just a fucking riddle, and he's such a goddamn prick to everyone. I just loved it.
yeah. The stuff with the is it Elena or Alana? Keefe?
Alana.
Good question. I think Alana, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Alana. Alana.
Okay.
I
You
think-
will,
I do that from time to time.
No, that's fair,
Klaus,
yeah.
Kloos,
Yeah,
Honestly,
Goose, Gus.
I don't
Yeah.
know. It's one of those things where when I read books, I just have the name in my mind, and I'm like, "That's what it is," and then I call it that. But speaking of Alana, that's my favorite character. I love when every time she's on the page, I'm fascinated. I love when they give you a little bit of her backstory in there. She's also like a sneaky badass too throughout.
Oh yeah,
like a real badass. She can handle herself for sure. Seems like a great mom, great wife, great the whole thing, but like also a very complicated character, a very well developed character. Steal a smooch and half on that as well, if that helps. But yeah, like, and I think again, you can't have, in my mind, the greatest comic book ever without having great lead characters. Like you can't only like the side characters, otherwise there'd be other books that you prefer more. But like I prefer her over Marco, but Marco's really good too. But like I just enjoy, especially like when they were split up, I was more interested in what she was doing usually than
hands
what
down.
Marco was doing. Yeah.
So I'm actually on the other side of this marriage. Marco is my guy, but Alana is a close second. As much as I do like the Will, I do like Prince Robot, and Hazel's the fifth main character, I guess, if you will, in all this. And they're all awesome. And I actually never really thought about who my favorite character was in this series until we were preparing for our special, because just like they're all awesome. I love having all of them. I love like learning about each character. And the reason I go with Marco, because I'm usually more someone like, all right, I'm more of like a doubles fan. Like if I get like Alana, you're gonna get doubles from her constantly. Like she's always gonna be, she's a commanding presence every single time she steps in the box. I'm going to move away. Actually, no, I'm not going to move away from the baseball references, because when I look at Marco, he's a guy who's calm, pacifist all the time. But then every once in a while, he comes up and it's like home run. He's just sucking farts, fucking starts swinging, sucking farts too. Apparently, I don't know.
Yep.
But every time with Marco, out of nowhere, you just see somebody die, and then like Marco's there, and it's like, wait, what happened? Like, wait a minute, you thought you were trying to be a pacifist. And then it's just like out of nowhere, it's like, I got to resort to violence. And every single time he does it, it's just like he becomes unhinged. I love a character who's controlled and then out of nowhere just snaps. And that's Marco to a T.
Yeah.
So which makes me frustrated about what's going on moving forward. Again, we are in spoilers, so you know what happened if you're up to date. But that was tough. I was really hoping that wasn't going to happen, but it made way too much sense, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll hit on that in a few minutes too. So with that, we'll talk about favorite side characters now. Keefe.
Lion Cat.
Ah, yes.
I love Lion Cat. Honestly, the Will's really good, but Lion Cat's so good, and like what a great little kind of power or whatever you want to call it to have and to introduce into this world. And he's a great kind of sidekick to the Will. And it's an interesting thing. Like he can't tell like if it's the truth or not. He can only tell if the person is actually lying about it. So like if you believe what you're saying is true, even if you're wrong, he can't tell the difference. He just knows that if you're lying or not. But it's awesome. And then some of the conversations and some of the panels that they had of him, and like somebody trying to like slip one past him, he's just like lying. Like, son of a bitch. Yeah, I love him. He's great.
And the looks that the two characters will give each other, like Lion Cat will give to the Will, saying the Will be like, dude, cut me some fucking, I'm trying to get somewhere here. Like, cut the shit,
Awesome.
I think there's one time where Lion Cat's like lying, like surprised. It's amazing. It takes punctuation. It's awesome.
I went with Gus or Goose, however you want to pronounce it. I love that little guy because he's just like so cute, but like when he gets pissed off and he's got that little battle axe in his hand,
Awesome.
he's a serious dude.
I knew you were gonna go with Goose. I knew you were.
Of course. And then runner up for me, I loved Isabel. I thought she was a great character, and then when we lost her, that really bummed me. That was the first time when someone died. I went, fuck.
Man.
Yeah. I in that moment I was like, wait, really? Are you shitting me? Like this bounty hunter comes, this weird, like we've got some weird looking characters in this series, but I forget what that was. It was not I want to say the Walk, but that's not it. But it was the two-headed bounty hunter and freelancer. Excuse me. I was like, wait, what the fuck is this individual's deal? And then boom, Isabel's gone. Who would be number 3 on my list? Number 2 would be Goose, for the same reasons Joe highlighted, but I'm with Rich on this one. Lion Cat is absolutely number 1 side character with a bullet for me, no questions asked. So oh my god, every time that character's like, I like the Will's good, but without Lion Cat, it's like, what the fuck? Like, give me more Lion Cat.
Need Lion Cat.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So, with all that said, bold predictions, going forward, there was, are there any concerns that any of you guys have, with the series after, a 3-year plus layoff? For me, I want to say, no, but, I'm a little nervous that, with such a long layoff, do Vaughn and Staples still have the same flair, the same understanding of these characters that they did, sort of in the prime, if you will? Because that's a long time to sort of, on one hand, they could be, really thinking about and coming up with some great ideas, but when you don't do something for a while, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So that's a little bit of my concern.
Is that a serious question? No, I think that's fair. My bigger concern is more a selfish one, and it's what Fryer was talking about earlier. How am I going to attack this? Because I personally love to read stories when they're done, and then I can read them at my own pace. So I can read Preacher as quick or as slow as I want, but I know that it's done. Whereas with this, it's like, am I going to read each issue every month, or am I going to... like what? Like how am I gonna go about this? So I'm more worried about that. And like, how long is this gonna take? Is this another 6 years?
Yeah,
until we're done. Like, I guess. So that part of it's tricky for me because I like to sit down and read big chunks at a time rather than one-off single issues. So I'm more concerned personally about that and sort of keeping up with it. And the other thing too with me is my memory sucks. So I watch so much TV, I watch so many movies, I read as many books as I can. Where if I read issue 55 or whatever when it comes out, and then I don't read 56 until like another month, I'm gonna have to go back and reread. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna have to keep doing that just so I don't forget any of the little details that they put in here.
That's a fair point. That's tough. That because we definitely run into that. I mean, we've been dealing that. We're talking about excellence. It's been a real tough one for us.
3 books in like a year. Like, get the fuck out of here.
So good, but it's just like, how do you not like forget some stuff, especially that one that's so dense. But actually, to help those who haven't gone back and done a refresher and are relying on us for the refresher, before I get into my concerns about Saga moving forward, the key players still involved in this. I'm not leaving out important names. We have Alana, Hazel, Petrichor, Squire, Upshur, Goose, Gwendolyn, Sophie, the Lion Cat, and the Will. That is so if there's an important key player that I didn't mention from before, they're gone. At least as far as we know. But I will talk about that a little bit later. But my only real concern is kind of going along with Keefe was talking about, like, how long is this going to take? Are we going to get another pause? More specifically, is my concern. If you got to go and do another 54 issues, and that's great. I'm cool with that. Like, that's totally fine. Tell the story at the pace and length that you want to tell it. Just please don't give me another pause again. I don't think that that's going to happen because I think they made a smart move by stepping away. So that shouldn't happen again. But like, I'm not going to go and necessarily rule it out because I don't know what else Fiona Staples did over the past few years, and maybe I'm crazy, but I don't know what else Brian K. Vaughan has done since their pause. I mean, they probably didn't need to do anything else because everybody's picking up Saga at some point, either whether you're on top of it or some people catching up later on. But but yeah, so like I do trust that they still have a feel for the characters and they never really truly left this world, just because once you get that thing in your head that you're trying to get out, that itch is still there. But just I hope they don't get burnt out again, because that's where they'll absolutely pause before putting out a less than like above bar book. They will absolutely pause. So I hope that doesn't happen again. That would be concerning.
So with issue 54 being, as they said, at the midway point, is there anything you want to see in this next arc coming up? And for me, I want two things. I want fucking Hazel vengeance and Alana vengeance. I want to see them just fucking go off, because we've seen Alana's capable of it, but Hazel's like, she's gone through a lot of shit, and she's a character that I want to see, like, they're not above, taking big leaps and like time jumps here. I want to see Hazel just become fucking hellfire and brimstone and seek justice. But I'm also kind of hoping Isabel makes a return.
I wouldn't be opposed to Isabel coming back personally.
Yeah, that'd be good. Mine's kind of like your first one, Joe. I want Alana to confront the Will, and it doesn't have to be right away.
Yeah,
but I need to build to that, and I think that would just be an incredible sequence with just those two on the page together and her losing her mind at him.
Yeah. I'm along those lines too. Like, I know we've seen Alana lose her mind before, but I want to see it ratcheted up to 10. I would like to see Hazel do that too. That'd be cool, Joe. I'd also like to see Marco's mom, come back into the fray. Her only son's gone. Her husband has passed, a while back in the story too. I want to see her lose her shit because she's the warrior there.
Yeah.
So let's see those two fighting side by side, back to back. Let's get fucking nuts with this.
And she's
violence.
prison hardened now too. She's like fucking Will Ferrell and Get Hard or whatever it is.
Yeah,
okay.
Just
I
like
hate that. That movie sucks. Wes likes it, but I hate that movie. Anyways, what else we got, Joe?
All right. So predictions for how this wraps up. And again, for me, it's Hazel. She's got to be the last one standing, sort of like, just her and then just a sea of fucking corpses. And because I think at the end of the day, as much as this is an Alana and Marco love story, right? Like, Hazel's the one narrating, right? Like, this is her story. So, I want to see her sitting on the fucking throne, at the end of it, so to speak. And just have reaped all the vengeance and just kicked all the ass. And so, like, I want to really see her character develop and grow and see where she ends up in all of this, because I think she's got the potential to be the fiercest one of them all.
Yeah, because at the very beginning of this whole journey, and then at the end here, or at the midway point, she references how, thanks to her parents, she gets to grow old one day. Yeah. And like, so that was one of the first tells back in book, I think 1. And you're like, okay, so she's telling it as she's going on. She's telling you the story. So to take it one step further to what Joe was saying, I think it ends with her really old and the world looking maybe completely different, but her obviously being alive, has to be just the way the story is being told. And then with all these different changes and probably surrounded by a bunch of characters who we haven't even met yet, would be my guess. If they're going to be writing this many more issues, she's going to come across a bunch of other people that are big parts of her life. But I think you jump way ahead. And then, I mean, there has to be some other kind of cool thing at the end, which I don't know what it'll be, but she's going to have to be pretty old, and maybe the world looks very, very different than what it looks like right now.
I bet you the war still goes on by the end of the book. Like, that nothing has changed on that front. It's still going to be a problem.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Alana is going to die in a blaze of glory. So kind of along the lines of what you guys are talking about. Like, she's going to go nuts, but she's going to have to be saving Hazel. I would like to see Hazel go nuts. But I wouldn't be stunned if we don't see her, like, her mom's still trying to protect her. And what I was thinking of as you two were kind of rattling off your answers here, we've got 4 kids that are still alive in this. I'm sorry, 3 kids. We have Squire, we have Hazel, and we have Sophie. And I'm wondering, like, Saga hasn't. Well, they killed Hazel's unborn brother. But I'm just curious: are we going to see one of those kids get off? I would say if we're putting odds on it, I would think that Squire's got to be the favorite.
Squire, yeah. It won't be Hazel, but it could definitely be Squire for sure. Sophie's been through enough, for Christ's sakes. I think better not kill.
Yeah, well, she almost got off, trying to get that fucking dragon semen. I mean, she barely,
Yeah.
She's not battle hardened yet, she
Oh.
almost been it then. So that'd be
That is
my
true.
my money. But
That
yeah,
poor kid
it's
is
got to
gonna
be
go.
Squire, I
You're
think.
right, Rich. I forgot. The Will that's the one thing the Will did very right. Like he saved her
Yeah,
from that shit.
not all bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, not all bad. Still kind of.
So, is there any chance that Marco is still alive?
I
I
don't think so.
I hope not. I hope not. If they bring Marco back, I think
That'd be
a
kind of
mistake.
lame, I think.
Yeah.
And like to do it the way they did it, where it's such a kind of like a cliffhanger, and then you have such a long gap, and then you're like, oh, like you thought he was dead the whole time. It's like, hey, look pretty clearly dead to me.
Yeah.
He's dead. But I think again, you're not going to be able to, or at least I don't think, write 54 more issues where he's not in it. So I think you're going to get a lot of flashbacks and like a little bit more of the Marco story. Like Marco, there's going to be more Marco. But is he, and maybe there's a way he can communicate with them from the dead or something like that. But I think he kind of has to be dead.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we get a Marco ghost. I could buy
maybe.
into that. But yeah,
A little Force Ghost.
yeah,
High
Force Ghost.
midichlorian count. High midichlorian count.
I was more thinking mouse ghost, but I would be stunned if Marco's still alive. I wanted to throw that question out there because I was curious if you guys thought that. But yeah, I imagine they're going to find his body, or maybe even they don't find his body at first. Maybe it takes a little bit of time, and they just don't know what's going on with him. But that's obviously going to be one of the biggest things that they're going to be addressing off the rip for sure. Have to.
Yeah. Well, I think it would just be a bit of a setback for them because, again, what makes this story so great is that they're unapologetic. They'll just kill people off and they're dead. And you've had this dynamic with Marco and Alana and Hazel and their interaction. I mean, his death has got to mean something, right? It's going to propel these characters forward. It's going to add layers to their characters. It's going to, just ratchet up, I think, the storytelling. Whereas if you brought him back, then there's,
What about Robot? What about Sir Robot? You think there's a chance he comes back because magic? You don't know. I mean, like he's still there on the island. They'll find his body sooner, probably.
Yeah, they cut his head off though, right?
I mean, that's kind of a big deal. Yes, I would. One would say. Yeah, some would say.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just
he deserved it.
Pop that monitor back on.
Yeah, that's right. Right, you just plug it back in. Right.
Things how it works. Yeah.
No, that's what I love about this book. When someone's dead, they're dead.
Dead. And they're going to create. There's going to be a character now, maybe not as good as Alana, Marco, Lion Cat, but there's going to be another character that's created here in probably the next, probably this arc, right? Like this, whatever this book will end up being, and it's going to be somebody's favorite.
Well, when you look at the cover, right, which for those watching, you can see the cover for issue 55 behind me. It looks like we've got some characters that had that spell done. The newspaper guys were talking about beforehand. Do we think that the guy holding the axe, for those who are listening in audio version, do we think that's Goose?
Could be.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be something else, huh?
Holding an axe. Yep. I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeez. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. That'd be interesting as hell.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So before we wrap this up here, who do you guys think someone will die off the rip? I didn't answer this one because I mean it could be anyone. They're not going to kill Lana off the rip, I don't think. Obviously, it's not going to be Hazel. My guess would be if they're going to kill, the next death will probably be, whatever freelancer decides to, keep chasing after these guys and will meet their end.
I say no. I think just because they had two major deaths in the last arc, in the last issue or last two issues, and even though this is a double issue, I think any character that we have already known will make it through these two issues. That's my guess.
I think, it seems like this is going to be a check-in issue, which I don't think anybody's going to complain about. It's been so long. As much as we're all rereading stuff, like we do want to know what's going on. If there's going to be a time jump, we need to catch up on things. And we talked about the key players. I mean, that's about 10 important individuals that we care about in this series. So other than maybe Lion Cat, a lot has probably changed with these characters, especially if there's a time jump. But if I was to predict who's going to die first, I would think that Upshur is going to kill Doff's friend who sold them out to, was it Iante or whatever, the lady with the diamond mask? So
that's another character to even talk about. You want to talk about a fucked up piece of shit.
Yeah.
I fucking hate her. Oh, God, do I hate her.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
Oh.
and she will. I think she's gonna die. I wonder if we're gonna get like a Prince Robot deal where she hangs around a really long time and then kind of becomes their friend. But I think that
No, she needs to fucking go. That twat. Pardon my French. I hate her.
I think Petrichor is going to be the one that takes her out.
That would
She's
be
got
something.
Yeah, could be.
But that is the Saga special. We cannot wait for issue 55 to come up. We'll, of course, touch on that because Joe and I should be getting advanced review copies for that ahead of next TLDR. But, Rich, thank you for joining us. You want to give people all the information for where they can find you?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm excited for Saga. Can't wait to read that. But just at Dork Podcast on Twitter and Instagram and on YouTube, where we stream our episodes on Monday night. And then you can get the podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. This week we did Scream.